A young girl named Carson Morris has a bright future, is a straight-A student and one of the school's best students. She always gets the highest grades in her class and her classmates are extremely jealous of her success. However, they pretend to be her friend just so she helps them with their studies from time to time. But now, things have taken a dramatic change. For the past year, the high achiever has been on. This all started when she got a scholarship at a really fancy Catholic high school. Not long after she was introduced to by her classmates, her shining future turned dark. She is a and doctors have warned her family to make her go to rehab, or else she might lose her life. Carson agrees to go to rehab, but on her way there, a group of people approach her wanting to make a documentary about her rehab process. At first, she rejects the offer, but due to their insistence, she agrees to let them follow her even though she doesn't really want them to. The group wants to create a documentary to show their viewers how rehab patients are being treated. They want to film the whole journey from the beginning to the end so people can see how things are going on for the patients. A few days later, Carson begins rehab with the expectation that it will be easy for her to return to her normal senses. But in reality, things are not so easy for her. The other people at the rehab facility starts making fun of her. Their jokes are far too mean. Making fun of patients isn't common at this facility, but somehow they seem to be targeting Carson specifically. We find out that Carson thinks she's been taken over by a demon and that she's using to decrease the devil's influence on her. Other patients and some of the doctors find her line of reasoning hilarious. Some of the patients also mock her, telling her to go to a mental hospital instead. The insults start getting to her, and because of this, her rehab process is slower. Everything is being recorded by the group of people making the documentary. During the chaos of the filming, one of the crew, named Jason, becomes a source of emotional support for Carson. He finds the behavior of others towards Carson deplorable. As the production assistant, he initially approaches his role with professional detachment. However, he quickly develops a bond with her. Unfortunately, Carson doesn't behave well around him because her body is craving, which she isn't getting. However, Jason thinks that she has an erratic behavior because she is possessed by the devil. He believes what she said regarding the why she started. A few days go by, while the cameramen are recording, and the bright lights stay on. Carson starts acting in strange and confusing ways. At first, some of the people at the rehab facility think she's just acting for attention, trying to escape her situation, so they just ignore her. On the contrary, Jason believes Carson more after seeing her behavior. The other patients who entered the facility that same time as her have improved their health, while Carson became worse. This can only mean that she's possessed. Carson's claims about being possessed by a malevolent force initially sounded funny and impossible to most, so they increased Carson's medication. They are treating her like an extreme, when in fact, she's only been an addict for a year. Jason, on the other hand, continues to take her seriously. Carson, seeing Jason as a friend, starts sharing her stories. While listening to her, he sees the torment in her eyes, the way she trembles at unseen forces, and the desperation in her voice as she pleads for help. Their connection deepens as they share quiet moments away from the predatory eyes of the documentary cameras. Jason listens carefully as Carson recounts her experiences, her voice shaky with fear and conviction. Her stories of supernatural phenomena and bizarre occurrences that seem realistic leave Jason both scared and unsettled. Even though Jason doesn't have any proof, he strongly believes that Carson is going through a tough time. He becomes her close friend, someone she can talk to, and together they fight against strange and invisible problems. Even though the other people at the hospital make fun of them, Jason and Carson doesn't let their surroundings ruin what they have. They are joined together by their shared belief that something diabolical happened to Carson. As time goes on, the people making the documentary continue to record Carson's difficult moments. However, everyone involved slowly start feeling worried. It becomes hard to tell what is real and what is something beyond human understanding, like ghosts or anything supernatural. Even the team making the documentary, who doesn't believe in these things, starts to wonder about what's really happening. In this special mix of a documentary and a spooky mystery, Carson and Jason's adventure take a surprising turn. Sometimes, the things happening can be much weirder than what anyone can imagine. As the strange events continue to unfold around Carson, it starts to gain the attention and people start talking about bringing in an exorcist. They think that maybe there's something supernatural going on, and exorcism could help. But there's a problem. The doctor at the clinic, Dean Curtis, doesn't agree. He thinks that bringing in an exorcist might actually make things worse for Carson. He is worried about her mental health, which has been greatly affected for the worse since coming to rehab. The doctor doesn't want to take any risks. One day, something really scary happens. While talking to Jason, Carson suddenly attacks him. The production assistant who has been supporting her all along, and is her closest friend in the clinic, is the first one to become her victim. This shocking moment rattles everyone seeing the scene. People start putting pressure on Dean Curtis to perform an exorcism. They say Carson might attack and eliminate someone else, as she no longer has control of her senses. Suzanne, who is the main producer and head of this documentary, steps in and shows her disappointment since her assistant has been attacked mercilessly. She really wants to bring in an exorcist to help Carson. She thinks only a spiritual person like that can make Carson feel better. She tries her best to get her point across, and also questions the rehab center's credibility so that they opt for an exorcism. However, Dr. Pertis doesn't change his mind. He believes the best thing to do is move Carson to a special hospital for people with mental health problems. There, Carson can get the right kind of care she needs. Thus, a debate erupts between those who want to bring in an exorcist and those who think Carson should go to a mental institution. It's a tense situation that leads to chaos. No one can agree on what's best for Carson and how to deal with the unexplainable things happening around her. The next day, Dr. Pertis examines Carson when she's much calmer. During the examination, he finds something really troubling, something that shocks him. He finds out that Jason, the person who had been supporting Carson, secretly gave her while she was unconscious, which is why her health deteriorated day by day. This also explains why she became aggressive. The doctor reveals this information to all other people present in the clinic. After this revelation, people immediately start questioning Jason, since no one expected him to do such a horrendous thing. Jason becomes nervous and trembles in fear. He admits that he used to give Carson because he thinks that this will somehow protect her from the demons haunting her. Of course, everyone finds his excuse ridiculous. Jason tries to explain further, but no one wants to listen to what he has to say. On the other hand, Dr. Pertis can't help but be worried and sad regarding the revelation. He knows that giving is not safe and is not something that doctors would prescribe. It's a dangerous decision, and people might question the rehab's credibility and security because of Jason's awful move. Furthermore, Carson's situation is guaranteed to get worse. Because of this, Dr. Pertis, after discussing with the other staff members, makes a difficult decision. He decides that Carson can't stay at the facility anymore. It's too risky to have her there, especially with the drug issue. He has to expel her from the facility to ensure her safety, the safety of others, and the reputation of the facility. When the doctor informs Carson's family, they plead that the doctor let her stay, but his decision is final. Eventually, with a heavy heart, they take Carson back home. Things begin to take a dramatic turn. Carson is expelled from the rehab, and her family tells the documentary team to stop recording her. They believe Carson's poor condition and all the things that have happened to her stems from this documentary. Her family wants to keep her away from the documentary project and instead focus on her recovery. This is a hard and emotional time for everyone. They are dealing with touchy subjects like addiction, mental health, and things that seem like magic or ghosts. When Susan finds out about all of this, she becomes livid. She and her team have been working really hard for many days. They are almost done making a movie, and now it seems like all their efforts will amount to nothing. It's likely they won't get any rewards for all the work they did. Susan is frustrated because she put a lot of time and energy into this project. She had hopes of making a good documentary that people would watch and learn from. But now, because of the problems with Carson and the unexpected changes, it looks like their hard work won't lead to a completed film. Susan believes everything fell apart because of Jason, which is why she and the rest of the team decide to fire him. Jason tries to explain why he gave Carson, but none of them agrees or listens to him since they think he is also mentally ill. Because of his actions, Jason is also evicted from the rehab. Jason doesn't let the recent events affect him. He wants to support Carson and stay by her side until she gets better. Even when Carson leaves the clinic, Jason doesn't give up. He keeps watching over her. He wants to help her because he's sure something is wrong. So, he sticks with her to make sure she's okay and to help her through whatever troubles she's facing. Jason is determined to be there for her until things get back to normal. Jason tries to get in touch with her family, but Carson's parents, Beth and Steve, know what he did to Carson. They hate him and want him to stay away from their daughter. They are worried about their daughter and they want to protect her. They know that keeping Jason away is for the best, but Jason doesn't give up. He knows there's more to Carson's story, and he's determined to uncover the truth. He begins to investigate Carson's life, trying to figure out why she ended up in this difficult situation. He starts his own investigation and visits his close friends to get to know about her. This is where he finds out about a shocking truth. Jason learns that Carson was being bullied at her new school by the so-called friends she made there. They knew that she was a high achiever, so mocking her was the only way they could have been dominant over her. One day, those so-called friends decided to play a cruel prank on her by forcing her to take part in a satanic ritual. It was during this ritual that something demonic took hold of her. With this new information, Jason thinks he's getting closer to figuring out what's really happening with Carson. With the newfound information, Jason really wants to step in and help her, especially because he now knows how much she suffered because of her fake friends. He decides that no matter what happens, he will help Carson at every cost. The following morning, Jason talks to the documentary team. He shares some information and evidence with them. He explains that Carson's friends did something very strange and possibly harmful. They played a game connected to something called satanic, and this game might be the reason why Carson ended up being possessed. Also, Jason mentions that her friends were involved in giving her. He believes that rehab might not be safe for her right now, so he decided to give her some medicine instead to help her. He tells the documentary team all of this, hoping they will understand why he's so worried about Carson's situation. Jason decides to return to the Morris family, this time with the entire film crew with him. He doesn't want to take any more chances. Upon reaching the house, guards try to stop him, but they still manage to break into the property, demanding to see Carson. It's a tense and dramatic moment. The moment Jason gets to confront Carson's parents, he insists they let him meet her. He tells them how she is possessed, trying to convince them that he will be confronting the supernatural forces that have taken hold of their daughter. At first, the parents become really angry. They don't want them there, and they're not happy about their presence. They're protective of their daughter, and they don't understand what's happening. But then something terrible happens. They hear Carson screaming from upstairs, and it's not just a regular scream. It's the kind of scream that sends chills down their spines. It's a scream filled with fear and pain, and it terrifies them. With no other options left, Jason decides to do something immediately. He tries to perform an exorcism on Carson all by himself. He hopes that by doing this, he can get rid of the demon that seems to have taken over her. But despite his best efforts, it doesn't work. Instead, the demon's power grows stronger, and the whole house suddenly loses power. It's like the darkness itself has taken over. In this very scary time, Carson is not the same anymore. A demonic entity has taken over her completely, and she begins hurting the people in the house, one after another. The people living there, even Carson's own mother, get hurt because of her. It's a very sad and terrifying moment, all caused by the demon. Despite all the confusion and chaos, Jason doesn't stop trying. Jason thinks really hard about what to do next. He knows he needs to try one more time to speak to Carson. He believes that somewhere deep inside her, there's a part that's still like a regular person, not taken over by anything strange. Determined, he decides to have one last conversation with Carson. He wants to connect with that human part of her. He hopes that by talking to her and making her feel understood, he can help her. This is his final attempt to reach out to her, to save her from whatever is causing her problem. He knows it's a very desperate attempt, but he really wants to rescue her. Surprisingly, it looks like he might be able to reach her and help her. In this intense and suspenseful moment, the fate of Carson and those around her hangs in the balance. Will Jason's plea be enough to break the demon's hold on her, or is it already too late? The darkness and the glimmer of hope don't last long. Carson's father walks into the room, and without hesitation, he shoots Carson in the head. It's a shocking and horrifying moment. Then, he turns the gun on himself and he does this because he believes that Carson is still under the demon's control, and he's desperate to end the nightmare. Suzanne, who is witnessing this gruesome scene, is overcome by before she can react. Jason, who had been trying his best to save Carson, commits a horrifying act. He slaughters Suzanne in an instant. It's a brutal and unexpected turn of events. The camera that has been capturing this chilling series of events is aggressively turned off by Jason. As the camera goes dark, a horrifying revelation is made. Jason's eyes, once human, have turned entirely black, just like Carson's were earlier, meaning that he has also been possessed by that demonic soul. The terror won't be stopping anytime soon for anyone.